Yes,
Wait,
he's onto something for sure.
maybe before you answer that, maybe talk about like
My history.
yes, a little bit. Why I use the restroom. Is
I'm
that cool?
absolutely. I don't know who all's gonna be watching this, but if you know me already, most of you know that I have been to prison. I am a convict. Life has changed for me since then. Things are not the same, but at that point in my life, yeah, a little bit of a difficult time. That kind of ties in with the whole foster care thing. The system kind of like took me in. I was dealing with a broken home. There was a lot of not knowing what the next corner had for me. So um, after high school, well, high school still, I was still in high school. I got in trouble with the law. I was already 18. Um, Everything took a turn for the worse. I ended up finishing or high school, got my diploma while I was incarcerated, and then life continued. Ultimately, I ended up spending about 4 years of my life in prison and jail combined. So in that time, um, I'm 18 years old. I'm new. I'm. That's the earliest point that you can possibly go to prison is 18. I'm sure as a juvenile you could probably experience juvenile prison. That wasn't me. Anyway, I end up I'm thrust into the system. There I am, 18 years old, fresh fish. They call you a fish.
You
You're
went to
just
prison at 18?
not prison,
Jail?
but that process started when I was 18. Yes,
I remember you being pretty young.
I was in jail. There was my first time in jail. I was 18 years old. I was maybe 3 months into my 18th birthday, uh, as early as possible.
Yeah.
I'm right in there. I'm not proud of it, and things have definitely changed since then. But at that point in time, yes, I'm 18 years old. I have shit for a family, and that's not saying anything bad about you and my
No,
siblings.
I don't take it
But
personally at all.
the home life was jacked,
Yeah.
completely jacked. I've already been in foster care at this point in time. I've experienced the shelter, the group home, and all the other little programs that could possibly be put in front of me. But I'm an adult now. I got in trouble. Um, it was a burglary charge. I was charged with burglary. There's a story there, and that might be for another time. Um, anyway, I'm
So
in
they
the
threw
I'm
the
in the
book at
system
you
now.
pretty much,
Yeah,
right?
I didn't have a lawyer. I didn't have any family to come say, "Hey, don't worry, it'll be okay." I was pretty much by myself.
Talk about the lawyer part because you had a public defender,
I did
right?
have a public defender, and
How do you feel about
I,
those people?
well, I have an opinion that might not be as popular as the public's, but public defender pretty much means that here I am, stuff me down the meat grinder, and whatever happens happens.
I feel like
A
the
public
public would
defender
agree with
means
that.
a public defender means that you don't have any money and you can't afford a lawyer, so now you're gonna have to just kind of take what they offer you. And the public defenders doesn't always have your best interests at
Do you
heart.
think you would have got less time if you had a paid attorney?
Absolutely, I don't
Maybe
think
none, right?
okay, this is going to be a big broad subject, but yes, if I would have had a paid, and I've thought about this, I've put some time into this thought.
Yeah.
Like, what would happen if things were different? What happens if you had money? If you came from money? If you came from a little bit more structure? And the bottom line is, yeah, I got chewed up and spit out. That was my destiny. That's what happened to me. But here I am now, and I'm okay with it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm 100% okay with it. Yeah, there was some pain and suffering involved, and some life experiences that I wouldn't wish upon anybody. But I learned from it, and it makes me a better person, and I'm happy where I ended up. But yes, having a paid attorney would definitely have made things a little bit easier. So what happens is you get a public defender. They don't have your best interest at mind. They just kind of want to process you.
Mm-hmm.
You're just another number. Let's just get you through. What's your story? Tell me briefly what your story is. Okay, the best interest here is that you're just going to take a plea offer. They're going to tell you, hey, we got a lot of evidence on you, and we're going to convict you. But if you say you're guilty now and we avoid trial, then we're going to give you less. We'll give you less time, less of a punishment, pretty much. So
And you're 18 years old, right?
18 years old, and your main focus at that point, they're talking, words are coming out, you're hearing them, but the only thing in your mind at that moment is, how do I get out of this fucking place right now?
Yeah.
Like, how do I get out of this jail? because I don't know this place and this is new to me. So you listen to these things. My first time in jail, my very first time in jail as an adult, and I did go in when I was a juvenile, and that also kind of ties into the original story we talked about.
Yeah.
But as an adult, the first time in jail, I wasn't there for 2 nights or 1 night. I was there for 5.5 months.
This is jail.
Jail. This is big boy jail. This is 18 and older. This is an adult. So 5.5 months I was in. At the end of that 5.5 months, there was a few different court visits, and ultimately, that day, the 5.5 month day, like the end of that that little stretch, I was given an offer. They were like, "Well, you can sign this here, and we'll just like give you probation, and you'll be done, and then you can go home today." And I'm like, "Yeah, I want that one. I want the one that I can go.
Yeah, I
want
to go home.
Yeah. Do I want to fight this? Do I think there's a fight? Yeah, absolutely. I think I could have fought that. Excuse me. There was, but they don't tell you like, yeah, if you fight this, the evidence is stacked in your favor. Like you can possibly just get out of all of this.
So your attorney suggested that you take the plea deal?
They don't give a shit about what happens to me. They don't get paid any different if I get off scot-free or if I end up going to jail. They get paid the same. Their job is to be a free representative. So I'm like, yeah, I want the one. I want the whatever. Give me whatever it takes to get out of here today.
Yeah.
5.5 months later, I go home, and then there were some very strict rules that were placed above me that said, "Hey, probation exists now. You're now going to have to report to somebody. You're going to have to piss in a cup. You're going to have to be on your best behavior, and they're gonna like be monitoring your life with a microscope. Like you're pretty much out of jail, but you're still in jail." Okay, I understand that now. So that didn't last long. I ended up botching that one pretty bad because I was a college kid, and college kids like to party. So anyway, going to the prison part. Yes, I went to prison, and I was there. It was a probation violation. Original sentence had been violated, and now they're like, okay, you had your shot. Now you go to prison. So I went in. That was a whole new experience. Like the whole 18-year-old Collin going into jail at 18 years old plus 3 months, and then spending 5 months there. That was a shock. It was like, hey, welcome to the real world. Now you're in jail.
So you're saying the 5 months was a shock to you?
It was.
You get released. You're on probation. You violate probation. Now you're back in court, I'm assuming, and they're like, hey, I'm just sending you to prison. Mm-hmm. So the moment the judge says you're going to prison, what are you feeling like?
I feel like, man, I've been doing this shit for 5.5 months now. Like I already have experience in this, but it's not the same. It's new.
So, but you're saying
you automatically
in the moment you were like, I can do this?
No, I was like, my life is ruined. I was like, there's nothing for me.
I got you. No,
I was like, in the back of your mind, you're like, well, if this situation happens to somebody that has already got 5.5 months into a jail sentence, and all of a sudden they're presented with, here's prison now. It's like, you would think, like, oh yeah, this guy's been doing this for 5.5 months. He's good. He can get into this. But no, it was like it started all over again. Like everything just kind of reset. I was all of a sudden back in there, which was not a shocker. It was not a new feeling. Being in the jail, saying, okay.
What was your sentence?
I got sentenced to 6 years.
And then how does that work?
If you behave yourself, you do less time.
About, if you had to guess, half. Good time is half, right?
Half for my situation, it was half.
So you knew you were doing it, best case scenario, 3 years. Mm-hmm. And then you're just dealing with this.
Yes.
Okay.
So
when you're getting booked into prison, you're going, I did 5 months. Now I'm about to at least do 3, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, and then at the time I was 19. This is the following year. And yeah, I'm like, fuck, man, like this is new. I'm not like I'm not big on socializing. I didn't at that point in my life. I hadn't been part of any like crazy high school groups where I was like the popular guy. I was just that guy. I was from a broken home. I was from a foster home. I was so anyway, I wasn't ready for it. Like it just like fell on me. And yeah, it was traumatic. I spent a lot of time crying, and you know whatever
like
that means
prison?
to everybody now. Yeah, absolutely. There's no way in hell I can deny that I shed some tears wondering about
Like
what
getting
my life
booked,
could have been like.
or do you mean like at night? When do
No,
you have time? I guess I'm
no,
trying to
no,
picture.
no. When you first go in, like, yeah, there's a process you go through.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time locked in little boxes for hours on end with fucking chains across your ankles and your wrists, and I spent a lot of time cuffed. And you sit there, and you're upset. You're like, this sucks. I'm in this situation, and then you start. Your life flashes before your eyes. Like, essentially, you're like, well, what now? What happens after this? Like, my life is done. Like, I'm screwed. Like, this is it. I'm always going to be tagged as the convict. I'm always going to be tagged as that guy. And so I'm young. I'm in the system, and yeah, I wonder, like, well, what happens if I would have had a different set of parents? What happens if I would have been at a better school, or if I would have been in a better situation altogether? And then you get upset. You're like, I shouldn't be here. This isn't my life. I didn't even do anything bad. I didn't do anything that I thought was bad. I didn't do anything that wasn't justifiable. And the bottom line is, nobody hears you, and you're by yourself. So you can sit there and cry about it for the duration of that sentence, or you can come to terms with it and say, what am I going to do now? Like, here I am. Am I going to stay here and just cry about it the whole time, or am I going to try to better myself? And I chose the second. I chose to better myself. The prison story is a long story. Like, but that, there's a lot of detail there.
Before you get into all that, did you consider, a lot of people, and again, correct me if I'm wrong because I wasn't actually there, I feel like a lot of people that get in there, they're kind of like, I'm going to fight this, they fucked me over, I'm going to learn law. Like, did you consider that first thing where you said, like, I'm going to cry about it and like tell everyone how I'm innocent?
Books.
Or like, did you ever think that you would do that? Or did your mind go to like, hey, this is my life, like, I'm going to finish this and get out and just focus on when I get out? Do you think that your brain was more of, I'm going to get out early, or I'm doing my time and then that's just when it is?
No, initially I thought that I was going to appeal my situation, and then somehow miraculously they were going to open the door and let me go home early. Yeah. Because, like, oh yeah, we were so wrong, Collin. Like, you're not supposed to be here. Let's let you go home. And I thought for some reason that I was going to be able to find the easy way out. So yeah, I spent a lot of time reading books and talking to the right people and communicating with law offices, and wondering if there was anything I can do to go home, to get out of there. And the bottom line was there was no chance. There was absolutely no chance in the beginning. And then our state in particular isn't the best organized for the judicial system. So anyway, I went ahead on to the next phase, which was, what do I do with the time that I'm here? You meet a lot of people, and by the way, the world inside of the walls is not the same as out here. There's no I've got to be appealing to everybody in the public's eye. There's no social media back then. It wasn't that long ago. I think it was under a decade before since the final, right? So
since the what?
Since I finaled, since
you got out?
Ended, yeah, since everything ended.
So you've been out for over 10 years?
No, less.
It's been less than 10 years?
Yeah, it's kind of cut up a little bit more. There's more to the end of it. But at that point in time, I'm 31 now. When I went in, I was 19, 20. And I spent, I got out when I was 23.
Yeah.
So yeah, about 4 years. But when you're in there, you don't think about the same things. You don't think about who's the president or what's going on in the outside world. Like, when you're in there, you have a routine. It's like its own little individual world. And the only outside communication you have is mail and whatever short phone calls you get. So anyway, I spend time trying to better myself. Okay. When you're in there, you have it, everything's divided. You're divided by unit. You're divided by how bad of an offender you are. Like, people that are in there for like dirty, nasty crimes like child abuse and like molestation and stuff like that.
Do they have their own spot?
They're completely outcast. Like, if they're anywhere near, I'm trying to remember the terms that they were using. Like,
so what would be, while you're thinking of the terms, what would be? So do they call them pods in prison? Mm-hmm. So you're in pods, right? So kind of break down the hierarchy, and then within that pod, there's what?
No, okay, you're looking at, it's different per facility, but Yes,
We'll talk
there's-
about the one that you're in, because I guess I'm trying to mentally
Yeah,
picture
yeah.
what it was like.
So there's a giant facility, and
Okay.
then they're broken down into smaller segments because
Okay.
they want to kind of govern those segments individually, so that way nobody.
So each
they don't want
segment
everybody being all together.
is a giant room full of smaller rooms, right? Is that? Can you paint a picture for me what it looks like if I were to visit there?
The world that you live in is your unit. So yeah, it's
That would
gonna
be your giant room.
It'll consist of 100 people probably.
And then individual cells. Is it? In the
It-
movies,
it changes.
it's always bars. Is it not bars?
If you've seen movies and you see prison movies, it's not what you see.
So that's why I'm asking.
That's a general
So it's a room.
painting of what the real thing is like, but no, it's not like the movies.
So it's a room. Tons of rooms.
You have a
How
day
many
room.
people would be in? Well, there's a day room. I think we understood that part. How many people would be in an individual room? Average.
I've been in situations where one cell housed 4 people.
Okay.
That actually had a structured bunk, and then in certain cases when there was an overpopulation, they would have multiple people in that cell that didn't have a bunk, that were just kind of laid out on
the floor?
on boats. They called them boats. They had like a plastic bunk that they just like slide in there, and then like there's a mattress on there. Like here's your bed, you guys are on the floor, and then there's the 4 main bunks. So anyway, yeah, you can stuff however many people you want to in one of those cells.
Mm-hmm.
What they don't want, what the facility does not want, is conflict. So they don't want to be putting like a lot of people in there that are from like rival gangs or something, or from. They don't want people to be in there killing each other.
Yeah.
They want peace. They like.
So what
okay.
happens if you get a roommate that's a fucking asshole, or he smells bad, or farts in his sleep?
Oh no, that gets addressed immediately. Like, hey, dude, you better fucking scrub your ass.
Who decides who addresses that?
Whoever wants to take charge.
If you smelt the fart, you tell him?
If you're offended by it, you will.
Or is it like someone came up to you like, Collin, get this dude out of here. That's your job.
That I've been put in that situation, and I've had to handle it accordingly.
So it just depends on the situation?
Yeah, it depends on the situation. There's no rules for that. It's if you stink, I'm gonna be like, dude, you fucking stink.
Yeah.
Like, you need to like not stink right now.
And
if
what
you
happens
do
if
want to
that-
stink, then you need to go somewhere else with that. And then they have choices at that point.
Yeah. Do they though, or do you kind of just?
Nah, they have choices.
Yeah.
They can either leave, like push. There's a calm button in every cell. There's a little button and a little speaker, and it's stainless steel, and it's very flush to the wall. If you have a problem, you push that button. A CO, which is a correctional officer, will come on that speaker and say, "What's up?" And you say, "I gotta go. Like, I can't be in this room. I'm in danger."
So I'm assuming
like they'll say whatever they want to say, and then the CO will be like,
if you're
"All right," and then they'll send a cop in there, and they'll open the door and they'll let you out, and then
So
they'll
if
take
you're-
you to another.
if you're about to fuck up one of your roommates, I'm assuming there's a dude that stands in front of that button, huh?
there is.
Isn't that like? I'm
like-
just thinking about where my mind would go. If I'm about to
yeah.
fuck my roommate up, I go, "Hey, bro, stand in front of that button," and
Yep.
then I would tell him something.
They tell me you better fucking roll it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
you saw them roll it up.
What if someone hit the button? Does it make it worse for them? Like that bitch
Yep.
ass. Do they tell everyone in the
They
prison like
they
that
will
dude hit his button?
they'll immediately get tagged as a little bitch, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, you're a bitch. Like, if they say, like, I don't give a fuck if I stink or not, like, what's up? And then they'll stand up and fight with you. Like, that's one thing.
Yeah.
That means that they're not desirable by any means if they're still stinky. Like, you have to have a good hygiene in there. But if they stand up and like, man up and be, like,
Yeah.
hey, like, you're challenging me, I'm going to square up with you. Like, they get respected a little bit differently. They get respect. And then if you're like, no, I don't want trouble, I'm out of here. Like, oh, push the button and leave. Then you're labeled as a little bitch.
What if they did a combination of both? They said, "Hey, I don't want trouble. I'll start showering." Does that person still get labeled as a bitch?
No, that's good. That's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you know
So
what?
you
You're
wanna
right.
follow the
Like,
rules.
hey, you know what? I'm in a traumatic situation. I'm
So
in
let's get back
I'll
to
take
the-
care of it. Don't worry, I'll scrub up.
Let's
and then
get back
they're like,
to
yeah,
the-
you're good.
Let's get back to the clicking up part. So can you talk about that? What does that look like? And what does that even mean? And how important is it really?
When you go to prison, you're confronted with the people that are already there. Typically already have established themselves in whatever group they belong to, and those groups will include hometowns, race, other variations of gangs, right? So a lot of times you say, I'm in the state of New Mexico, there's 3 or 4 metropolitan areas, Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Las Cruces, Farmington, and then you got smaller little.
I don't know if I'd count Farmington.
It's third largest. They're bigger than Santa Fe.
Are they?
Yep.
Jesus Christ. You gotta
So
get out of
anyway,
state.
so you're in jail, right? And then everybody's like, "Where's my Farmington boys at? Where's my Albuquerque boys at?" And the Burque boys will get together. Anyway, then you got big giant prison gangs that belong to the people that have been there for a long time.
Do sometimes these prison gangs have nothing to do with anything? It's like they're
exclusive prison.
We're the painters, and like only painters hang out in that group.
Nah, it's
like, what would a group look like that doesn't belong to a race or a city? Can you think of one?
yeah, they belong in the church.
There's a church group. I guess that makes sense too. So there's a religious
No, I've personally gotten to a situation where I'm like,
wait, there's a group in prison that's like a church group.
I've gotten to a situation where I had to roll somebody out, so I went and took care of my business. I jammed them up. I was like, "Hey, you're not welcome here anymore. Grab your shit and go."
Yeah.
And what that means to them is pack your shit up, tell the CO that you don't feel safe here anymore, and they'll take you somewhere else.
Yeah.
And they'll put you in another facility, or they'll arrange transport. They'll put you in a lockup situation for, I don't know, until they arrange transport, which could take a month or two.
Yeah.
They'll be in segregation, like in seg units, which we call the hole. So they'll get thrown in the hole. Anyway, and then that one person in particular, he kind of screwed up, and I ended up taking him aside and said, "Roll it up, dude." He didn't want to roll it up, so I had. So who's gonna watch it? I whooped his ass real quick. I busted him up pretty good, and I said, no, I told him initially, like, "Hey, roll it up."
You had someone guard the
button.
button?
I saw him roll it up and get out. And he's like, "Well, I'm not leaving." And I'm like, "You're fucking leaving." Like, like it was sad. So I was like, "No, I was like, dude, you're putting me in a situation by making I'm the one here in front of you, because that's what was, that's what the arrangement was from that other end." And I was like, "Grab it up and go, like, or you're gonna have problems." And then he didn't want to leave, so I whipped his ass pretty good. There was blood, but
was this like in your cell? Where were you at?
It was in a common unit. It was, yeah. I was in his little area.
You went to his area, confronted him. He didn't want to leave, and so you fought him wherever he was at.
Yeah.
And then what happened from there?
I socked him up, and then I was in the wrong unit, so I socked him up and said, "Grab your shit. You better be gone by the time I come back." And I socked him up, and I pulled my beanie over my face and like walked back to my unit, which was across the facility. Yeah. I was on the verge of getting locked up because I was in the wrong part of the building. Mm-hmm. It was a security issue. So I got back, and he ended up leaving. He rolled it up. And then I saw him at another facility at a later date, like a year later. And he was a porter for the chapel, which means his job was to do whatever the priest...
A different facility, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they'll move you around the state.
So you got moved, and he happened to be there.
I got moved because a facility needed population. Like, they had opened a new facility, and that facility, they kind of just started grabbing, like, let's just take these 20 people from here, and then let's take 20 people from this facility.
So you got moved over there, and
they just started
he was already there.
Oh, yeah, it'll happen all the time.
Yeah.
So I got shipped up to another facility, and I saw him there. I'm like, "What's up, bro?" Like, jam him up. He's like, "Oh, we're cool." Like, I'm not all about that shit anymore. Like, I'm just working for the chapel. So the chapel, when you work for the chapel, that means that.
Wait, because I didn't understand this. Why did you roll him out in the first place? Because he wasn't. What did he do wrong?
That's controversial.
All right,
especially by today's standards.
So when he said, "I'm not about that anymore,"
he claimed representation of a certain group. Right? He was involving himself with a certain group, and that group did not tolerate certain behavior, and he was taking part in that behavior.
And so that's why that happened. So when you saw him at this other place and he says, "I'm not about that,"
he wasn't part of that behavior anymore, but he didn't.
Okay.
But he knew that he had already been tagged. He knew that he already had a certain blemish to his name, so he didn't mess with anybody. He didn't take part in any groups. He went about his daily business.
He went to the chapel.
He worked out in the gym. He went and ate his meals at the chow hall. He had a few people in his little group, like, also, and those are the people that just kind of don't want any part in the majority population. Like, they don't want to be part of the prison, the lifestyle. Like, they don't want to be part of the prison culture. They just kind of like, "I'm just here. I got to deal my time, and I got to leave." But being part of that group can also make time hard for you because you you're part of a group. You're looked at by all the other groups as a certain type of person, and some of that stuff will carry on when you go home. Like when you go out and you're free, they'll know that you're a certain type of person. Now, at present, I live a lifestyle now where that stuff is gone. It's long gone, way long gone. And I look at it now and I think to myself, how ridiculous is it? Like the whole governing system behind prison groups. It's like, yeah, you do it because you want to be remembered as a gangster. You want to be remembered as like a hard dude, like you had your shit together, like you were somebody. But looking back at it, I'm like, that's stupid. Like that's so stupid.
So what was the issue with the chapel? You mentioned like I asked you if
that's
you ever...
where you go when you want to be protected. Like when it's not.
So that was his group.
You're not safe. But it tells everybody else, like, hey, I don't want any shit. Like, I'm just a little bitch. Like,
so
let me be a little bitch.
Who makes it through prison without clicking up? How often does that happen?
Old people, like super old geriatric type of people, typically will not. So the other
prisoners will go
like,
just leave that guy alone.
If you walk in that prison door, like they're like, hey, you're going to prison. Bah, here you go. Bah, in prison. Excuse me. You walk through that door. Everybody else like turns and looks at you and they're like, here's new people coming in. Who are they? What are they about? And they start checking you. They want to know where you belong. They want to know if that you belong with them or with the next group over there, or they want to know what you're in there for. Like, are you here because you raped somebody? Because that's bad. Like, they won't even put you in there. They'll be like, oh, this guy's.
But I'm assuming people don't even.
But they're like, oh, you're in here for doing drugs or like dealing drugs or robbing somebody, or like they call those like, I don't even remember the term they used, like good charges or bad charges. Like they want to know that you're not there for like some crimes against like humanity.
So
like,
who makes it through like without a label or without a click? Like what kind of person?
Old people.
That's it. Could someone like me go to prison and
no.
the Aryan Brotherhood?
I tell you exactly.
Click with me, and I go, no, I'm good. And then the Crucis people are like, click with me, and I'm like, nah, I'm good.
You're gonna walk. Survive. You're white. You have a red beard. You look white. Like when somebody sees you in public, that dude's white.
Would I be allowed to hang out with the Crucis people?
Yeah. I think that would be
those are my only two options.
Now, I actually have friends that are very.
Could I join the chapel?
Have at it. So you can go.
Want to know my options, man?
You can go to jail, and I can tell you right now. As soon as you walk in, the white people will see you and like that dude's just like us. He's very, very white. Like he's.
What happens?
And they're gonna try to jam you up, and they'll be like, "Hey, where's your heart?" Like they're gonna check. They're gonna heart check you. They're gonna make sure that you're able to stand up for yourself.
But what if I don't? Here's my point. Is what if the Aryans are like, "Hey, you're my guy," and I'm a bitch, and then I go to the Crucis people, and they're like, "That's my boy," and maybe I say something stupid like that guy doesn't have boundaries. Maybe I go to the chapel and I fart, and so like you can't be part of the chapel. Like, and so what do I do then?
It's not like that.
Like, is my life over? How do I survive if I can't be in the chapel, Crucis, or Aryan?
Well, you can. If you are confronted by a group that sees you fit to be in their group.
Like the Asians?
And they check you.
I feel like the Asians will want me.
If they check you and you're not, and you like bitch out, then you're labeled. All of a sudden, word will travel. And by the way, we're talking about a very primitive system. Like you're stuck in this system where that facility, that geographical location, in that facility, word gets around via talking to people. That's it. Now, for somebody in a whole nother facility across the state to hear about it, like you would think that was unheard of. Like, oh, how'd they get word over there? Yeah. Well, it gets around. It'll get around. So once you kind of like, and this is crazy because whenever I first went in, I was like, whoa, what's gonna happen? And they're like, well, when you get there, they're gonna check you, and then you're gonna have to fight. You know, like you're gonna have to stand up for yourself. And I was like, oh my god, here we go. And then you get there, and then you get there and you're like expecting something to happen, but it doesn't happen. You're like, whoa. Okay, and then one day something crazy pops off right in front of you, and you're expected to behave a certain way. You're like, do I want to be? You have to ask yourself, do I want to be remembered as like a tough guy that can handle his own shit? Like if somebody calls you a little bitch, what are you gonna do about it? Like if somebody tries to take your food from you, what are you gonna do about it? And you're expected to behave a certain way. If you don't behave a certain way, then you're like outcasted, you know? You're like, oh,
So what
they're gonna
happens to
they're
those
gonna take your
outcasts,
stuff
though?
from you. Like, oh yeah, like the old people, they're like, I don't want any trouble. And then typically, people will get their way with like, give me your food, or I want that. Like
So you pretty
anytime you
much
get that, I
have
want
to
that.
click up, is what you're saying. If you want to survive longer than
It's all about
a couple
perception.
months.
As I look at it now, I'm like, oh, that's stupid. I'd have fucking busted everybody up. I would have fought everybody I could. Told them all, fuck you.
But could you?
I'm not part of your shit. I'm out.
Can you
Try
think of a
again.
younger person that didn't click up that did okay?
Nah, when
No.
you're young, you always get fished into one of the groups.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a weird situation to take a human being, specifically a kid, which you were when you got arrested, and then take him from a situation where he has no structure, right? Which you would agree with that we had none as a kid.
Not at all.
And then you put him in a facility. Not that the transition was seamless, right? There's other things that happened in between. But you take a person or a child that had no structure and you put him in a place that probably has the most structure in the world. You would assume that transition is going to be a little rough and that person's going to fail at that. Or at least have a hard time with that. At least I would assume. Don't you think that's a weird jump from someone that had nothing
It's
at
definitely
all?
broken for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole system does not work.
What do you think would work?
It's supposed to vary by person. So my
But
situation in life is unique. It's
if
not
you were a
like anybody
politician
else's.
and you would have the experience that you've had and you're like, hey, prison isn't successful. And they go, what's your
This
idea,
isn't
Collin?
the first time I've had to think about this.
What's your idea to save the world? And you go, instead of prison, how about...
My opinion on this matter is going to be a little bit different than what you might expect. I was part of the system. It was a broken system. It does not work. But I am a success story coming out of that. It doesn't work. I think it's bullshit. I think most people are destined to failure. Personally, I did not fail. I crawled right out of that hole and made something of myself. But I feel like for the average person that goes through there could be other ways for
Yeah.
them to succeed. I think the penal system is designed to isolate certain types of people. For example, if you're an offender, you have a charge, you have a felony, you go to prison. When you get out, they expect that you'll return. Why? Because you already show a pattern of it. You're gonna return. Like, oh, you're a druggie. You're gonna come back. Like,
Yeah.
we'll see you soon. Like, hey, go on home, go take care of your business, go get, go visit your family, go get some, and then we'll see you back soon. Like, they expect you to return because they're trying to isolate that type of person from the rest of society. And because of that, they want to, instead of saying like, hey, look, dude, you screwed up, and if you keep following along the same path, you're going to keep screwing up, and then you'll go nowhere. So let's just put you over here and give you an education and give you a job and like try to help you figure out how to live life the right way. And they don't do that. They just say, go to this program. Like, you have to, or we're going to lock you back up again. And like, they like kind of set you up for failure.
Yeah.
And you know, as well as I do, that even me, as well off as I am now, I fell a couple of times since then. It's not uncommon. That's how it is.
Yeah. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it at all, which is why I'm glad that you talked about it. And on a previous podcast, I talked about how I'm always like one of the first people to admit I've done some things that are arrest worthy and I just didn't get caught for. But there's this weird labeling thing that society does to where if you're a criminal, you're bad. And if you're not a criminal, you're good. Right? At least basically. And then we break those down. All right. Now out of all the non-criminals that are good, this guy is he's kind of rude. So now he's out. He's bad. He's bad, but out of the good people. Like a person that's an asshole that's not a felon gets looked at differently than the person that maybe is a felon but that is a nice guy. Because society, we've broken it down. Like no matter what you do, even if you're an asshole, if you don't have a felony or a criminal history, then those guys are worse. For whatever reason. That's just the way it goes. I don't agree with that. But that's the hierarchy of it. They go, all right, these people are criminals, so they're low. They're low. These people over here, we can start breaking these down. These guys are assholes out of the good people. These guys, you know what I mean? And then you get the great people. But I think people forget that, like, that's stupid. You can't do that. You can
Doesn't
never...
work.
It doesn't work like that, and it shouldn't work like that. And if there wasn't labels, half the greatest people that you would like, if you found out they were criminals, you'd be like, what? How many times? And you could tell me if you've ever experienced this. How many times have you told someone about your past and they go, wait, what? You were this?
More common now than ever before.
Yeah.
The reason why is because as time goes on, it becomes more and more distant in my past, right? So people that have known me for a decade plus, they know everything. I've never.
Have you ever had anyone change their opinion of you? Like maybe they thought Collin's awesome, and then they heard that and they go, never mind.
I've had people say, no. I think for the most part, the people that are super surprised, they learn about this kind of stuff so far after we've developed a relationship, to where I can literally tell them like, hey, yeah, by the way, this is a thing about my past. Like, this is my life. By the way, the person that you know, that's me. Like, don't worry about it. Like, I'm okay. Don't worry about it. And a lot of times they're like, cool. Like, that's still crazy. Like, I would never have guessed. And I'm like, that's exactly what I'm going for. Like, I want to get through the rest of my life not being known as that guy. I don't want to be known as a prisoner. I don't want to be known as a number, or a ward of the state, or a foster kid. Like, just know me as the person that you met me as, and what I've been in your life, you know.